Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge von Kalter Kaffee und trockene Kekse. Heute ist der zweite Teil der England-Folgen mit Ariane Hoppler. Heute bin ich im Gespräch mit Plomena, April, Robin und Alfie, allerdings komplett auf Englisch. Ich würde euch deswegen empfehlen, auch die Folge von der letzten Woche vorher zu hören. Ariane Hoppler wird dort erklären, wie Partizipation in England funktioniert, was die Unterschiede zwischen Deutschland und England sind. Ich finde das Gespräch, was wir jetzt führen, fand ich super interessant, denn die drei Jugendlichen haben wahnsinnig viele Möglichkeiten in England. Plomena und Alfie sind beide in lokalen Youth Councils in Norfolk tätig, also quasi größeren Jugendhilfeausschüssen und die allerdings komplett mit Jugendlichen bestückt sind, die über Einstellungen beraten und auch große Budgets verwalten. April dagegen ist sogar gewählt in das größte englische Jugendparlament und das ist auch national. Alle drei erzählen von ihren Programmen. Ich werde nach dem Podcast nochmal versuchen, das, was wir gehört haben, ein bisschen einzuordnen und wünsche euch jetzt viel Spaß mit einer neuen Folge Kalter Kaffee und trockene Kekse.
Oh, guys, thanks so much for popping along for this German interview. Shall I quickly explain what this is and then we do an introduction? Yeah. So I'm from Germany originally, but I've lived here quite a long time. And I'm a youth worker and a youth counsellor and everything. And I work for Norfolk County Council. And every now and then I work with German colleagues and particularly in the field of participation and listening to the voice of children and young people, because we do it so amazingly well here in Norfolk. And dare I say, much better than many parts of Germany. Germany does other things better, but youth participation is really great here. And so I've been invited to speak at a conference in 2 or 3 weeks, can't remember, for a federal state, for a part in Germany, and particularly the church organization there. And they're really interested to hear a little bit about how we do things here in Norfolk with listening to the voice of young people. And then I suggested to some of the organizers, why don't we talk actually to some young people rather than me talking about it, and then Daniel had the lovely idea, why don't we do a podcast? We have a podcast anyway, where we can interview people before the conference starts, so that people who attending the conference have a chance to listen to you. That's it. So we can do, if we do a round of introductions, and Robin is here as well to talk a little bit about, from his point of view, about what we do so amazingly well here. So do you want to say who you are?
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm Alfie Randall. I'm a young commissioner for the West Norfolk Youth Advisory Board, and I just try to make a difference in my local area.
Who wants to go next? Plomena?
Okay, I'll go. I'm Plomena Marinova, and I'm a young commissioner at South Norfolk Youth Advisory Board, and I also work with the Youth Futures Foundation as part of the Future Voices group.
Do you want to say a little bit about what the youth advisory boards do?
Yeah, so we're a group of young people, and we basically come from different districts around Norfolk, and sometimes we collaborate together, sometimes we focus on our own individual districts, but we just try and improve young people's lives in our local area wherever we can, so whether that's with mental health projects, the environment, bullying, sexual health, those kinds of things. And we do trips and podcasts and those sorts of things, interviews online, over the radio, just to try and get the message around, pretty much.
And you do have money to spend as well, don't you, Alfie? Is that right?
I believe we have a fund. I'm not in touch with that part as much, but yeah, I believe we do.
So each of the youth advisory boards has £45,000, which they can spend.
Which is about 55,000 euros, I think.
Okay. Totally by yourself, so you're totally capable of the money, or
I don't have control,
Okay.
but we'll have each YAB has their own leader, and usually someone else that works with them alongside them as a number two, and they'll obviously commission projects that we want to do or that we feel would help our area. So if we had a meeting one day and decided that we wanted to work on mental health, our leaders would then assign a bit of money for that particular project. And usually at the start of the year, we create an action plan. And that action plan sort of divvies up all the money we have that year into different projects. So it's like a pre-plan.
Shall we just quickly hear from April? April and you as well.
I'm April. April Hayward. I am the member of Youth Parliament for North and West Norfolk. Should I explain what Youth Parliament is?
Yes, that'd be good.
that would be nice.
Pretty good, yeah.
Well, it's kind of it's the counterpart to adult parliament, I guess you could call it, in the UK, and basically we are voted in, like MPs are voted in by young people from the ages of 11 to 18 in our constituents, and so we advocate for youth voice in our areas, get involved in campaigns. And I mean, things have been a bit up in the air because of COVID, but we do go to, we are meant to go to sit in the House of Commons annually to discuss, to bring forward campaigns. And Make Your Mark is the key event we do, which is where young people vote for key topics that they want Youth Parliament to address. And it's the largest youth consultation in the world. I think that's it.
Can you tell us what the current couple of the current topics, April? What are they?
Yes. So right now, nationally, we have it's making. I think if it's getting rid of university tuition fees. I can't remember the order, but that was one of the top three, as well as mental health, resources, and plastic pollution. Those are the biggest national issues. And also in Norfolk, the biggest issues were homelessness and plastic pollution. Wait, sorry, have I got that? Sorry, I think, yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. And we haven't heard from Robin yet.
No, so I'm Robin Konieczny. I also work for Norfolk County Council, Children's Services. And part of my role is that I lead on youth voice within the county council. So I'm responsible for projects like the Youth Parliament and the Youth Advisory Boards. I mean, I suppose just to put some background on all of that. So the Youth Advisory Boards are our main mechanism for getting young people's voices in quite local areas. So if you think of Germany with its federal states, and then shrink that down to Norfolk. So Norfolk would be like a federal state in Germany, not with quite the same powers, but the same sort of political structure. And then within Norfolk, you have subdivisions. And so, of which we have 7 of those. So we have 7 youth advisory boards, and they're linked to each of those geographical areas. The Youth Parliament is a national organisation. including Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And that's an elected body of young people that really contributes to government thinking, national government thinking. So when the government is thinking about policy in relation to young people, they will often come and ask the youth parliament. But equally, the youth parliament will go to government and say, we're concerned about. So I think one of the biggest successful campaigns was around the delivery of sex and relationships education in high schools, which for a long time in England certainly has not been very good and wasn't compulsory. And the youth parliament campaigned on making a change in that. So and the government introduced that change. So it is an opportunity for young people to make a difference on a national scale.
Yeah, it's I think it's so interesting to get this structure of the participation, because we have nothing like that in Germany, and one of the main things I was talking with Ariane about was just like how do we get more participation in like a small youth club, because it's not even there in the small body. Yeah.
I mean, we have all of that as well. So these are our sort of biggest structures within a youth project. We would expect every youth project to have youth voice as part of its structure and part of its delivery. So when the youth advisory boards commission a piece of work, so where Alfie talked about, if it was on mental health, written into the contract for that would be a clause that says you must listen to the voice of young people.
So, Alfie, do you actually take the decisions together with adults who gets the money?
Yeah, so usually what we'll do is we'll have a few meetings over a few weeks, and we'll sort of discuss with our own little group and build up our ideas, make it one big thing, and then we'll take it forward into a board meeting, and then roughly every month. And then usually our board would vote on something like this if we wanted to commission a project that could be quite a big thing. And if it's the go-ahead, then what we'll do is we'll ask our leaders to assign a bit of money towards that project, and then it gets underway. That's the gist of it, pretty much.
So what was the last decision you guys were involved in?
Voting for our number 2, I believe. It's only a small one, but we had to decide among ourselves. We were given the choice of 2 candidates to sort of be a number 2 for Bob, so that they could support each other when they're working. One came from MAP, which is the organisation that sort of commissions the youth advisory boards, and the other one came from a local Swan Centre project or group, and we had to decide which one would benefit, firstly Bob the most, and secondly us as young people the most, and who we could probably get the most out of or work the best with.
So that's a staff recruitment,
yes.
Isn't it? Yeah. Because
so
we just talked about that. Daniel and I talked about it. So it's appointing a member of staff.
This is slightly different because they haven't appointed the member of staff. What they've appointed is an organisation to provide that member of staff. And the bit that Alfie's left out was that it was actually about spending money. So can you remember what the value of the contract was, Alfie? Do you want me to say that?
No, you can go for it, but I just know there's a big difference in the two.
So that they considered 2 bids. One that had a value of around about £35,000, and the other one was around £45,000. And in the end, they went for the cheaper bid.
Mm-hmm.
But altogether, we don't just look at the price. As tempting as that is, we have to look at their promises and the kind of things that they are going to bring to us as a group. So in that situation, they were the best option. So that was our last big decision, I guess, as a group.
Plomena?
Oh God, I couldn't tell you the very last one. I remember recently we did a Momentum grant, which is basically an exterior company that works with the YAB, and we review and applications are made to them from local people supporting young people within our constituencies and different places, and we have to review the grants and see whether we think it actually have a positive impact on the young people that are being reviewed. So I think the last one was about a youth club, like hangout center area, and they were trying to get people to be able to come in and just have a relaxed I can't remember where exactly it was, but it was somewhere in South Norfolk. They were trying to get people to just have a space where they can come in and relax and talk if they have any worries or anything like that. And we had to just go through and see what the pros and cons would be, and whether the money they were asking for was equal to what we're gonna get out of it. And as part of the Youth Futures Foundation, the last thing we did was also a grant. We were we were trying to find a new company that supports young people into employment and to retain employment for a long time. So we were trying to find, we were looking through several companies. There were 4 in total, but I'm not allowed to name anyone. And then we were trying to see which company would be best suited and which company we believe would have the best outcomes. And also we had to review the company who'd work most morally and their previous results as well.
In April, what was your last decision?
Well, my last decision was only 2 days ago, and it wasn't connected to youth parliament, but I decided to go on a protest in London outside the Houses of Parliament because Parliament was recalled yesterday to discuss Afghanistan, and I was protesting with Stop the War. Yeah, so we were demanding to advocating to welcome refugees and learn from the mistakes of the war in Afghanistan.
And what I was wondering is just, how did you guys get into that? So, I mean, how did you guys get involved so much in participation and in your different parliaments? Alfie?
Yeah. So I was just leaving high school, and I was entering sixth form. So that's our post-16 education. And I met a friend, and he was really, really keen on this this youth participation thing that had been going on for a little bit before him. And he was really good friends with our leader, and a few other friends from sixth form had been doing it as well. And he was a couple of years above me, but he sort of got me into it, and he took me to a couple meetings, and we had little pizza parties, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a small little group. And the fact that I got to talk to these big organizations, big groups of people, I got to chair my own meetings eventually when I had the confidence in myself. It was just a magical moment, really, and it really changed my life. If you met me in high school, I've said this before, I was probably the most shy person. I wouldn't speak to many people. I had a small, close group of friends, and that was about it. But moving out of there and into sixth form, I eventually became the leader of my school's student executive. I ran meetings and charity events for the school. I've been on trips abroad to study different things, so sexual health in Amsterdam, and also happiness and their mental health over there. But yeah, it's all these opportunities really appealed to me, and I just wanted to make a difference in the world as well. So that's why I'm here today.
I'd forgotten, Daniel has asked me beforehand, how do you get people into participation, to mention the pizza stuff, which Bob's team is really, I came to an event talking about mental health, and there was loads of, I can still picture it, loads of pizza on the table, and the most unhealthiest pizza and sweets, and so if you wanted to do a healthy lifestyles campaign, that was hilarious. Yeah, lots of Coca-Cola and everything. But everybody was, like Alfie said, everybody was just really in a good party mode, eating all these massive pizzas. They were not only just any little pizzas, really big ones. Yeah, I remember that.
How was your way, Plomena? Also pizza, or?
Definitely not that nice. I think I'd always been quite interested in like getting involved in decision making, and it was actually by accident I stumbled upon the Youth Town Council, which is well, no longer exists, but was a town council, like was a youth town council within the area I live in, and I met a youth worker through there, and kind of everything else just followed suit. I think I started participating more. She was pushing me to just kind of participate into more things, and the more I got into it, the more people I got to meet, because it's quite a good networking opportunity. I think there's so many incredible people and incredible initiatives you can meet and get involved in, and the more I started doing that, the more I wanted to continue being involved, and I joined on to whatever I could.
And April?
It was actually happened when I was 14, and I heard about Youth Parliament through it was a magazine one of those magazines, free magazines about Norfolk that you get through your door, and so I thought, well, I can apply to that, and because you have to get elected, I wasn't elected that time in 2018, but then 2 years later in 2020 I decided I wanted to run again, and that's how I really got involved in Youth Parliament, and more youth voice around that. But before that, I also was involved in some groups locally. And because of the demographics of my area being mostly older people, I was often like the only young person in the room, but good to advocate from that point of view.
And when I hear that you're so participated, you can follow your ideas. You can. Some of you have money they can spend. How is it coming home with your parents when everything is like you stand up for your rights and you fight for your rights, and then you come home? And is it a different behavior by the adults in the youth work than at home?
I mean, I'd say so. I come home sometimes, especially when I first started, and they'd have no idea what I was talking about, mainly because they hadn't heard of it themselves. And then I'd go back to a meeting, and then they'd be all like, "Oh yeah, let's get involved in this mental health project." And then I go home and tell them about it and try to talk about my successes. Again, no idea. It wasn't until lockdown really when I started doing a lot of meetings from my own bedroom that they had to obviously respect that boundary when I was on a meeting, and then they'd come and ask me how it went. And yeah, so you gradually learn, I guess, as an adult. But no, it's really a good thing. And if you can get your parents involved as well, you're not just looking at the young people's side, you're also gonna get their opinions from what they're saying about it. And you can also help them to sort of spread the word a bit. So if you're trying to influence an older generation as well, then that certainly helps.
How much do you think, a question to all three of you really, how much do you think your view on life, your view on politics has been steered by the views of your parents?
Oh, I'd personally say both yes, like quite a bit, and not at all. I think me and my parents disagree. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that me and my parents disagree quite a lot politically, but I think in terms of my view of other parts of like being alive in the world in general, I have had quite a huge influence from them.
Yeah, I'd say the same. It wasn't until that I got to voting age that I realised what I wanted myself. But my parents were always strong Labour supporters compared to anywhere else. So I always followed in their footsteps. But now that I have my own voice, and I'm talking to different people from different backgrounds, and they have their own opinions, I'm starting to learn new things. So it's definitely influenced me that way, less so parents nowadays.
April?
Well, I like to think, because I think my parents have installed in me being quite open-minded, and because of that, although I have firm principles, I think my views are quite fluid. Though I do have certain ideas, because I like to hear from different people, different perspectives, because I think you can't just close yourself off in an echo chamber because you become out of touch. And I think sometimes I'm challenged by my parents in what I think, and I think that's helpful. But in fact, I do think when I was younger, I used to disagree with my parents more on certain things. I held my ground, but now as I've got older, I've come to agree with them more on other things. But then on different things I didn't think about before, now I disagree with them. So I think a fair amount, but I also think I like to think I think for myself. But of course, I think people are very much affected by their surrounding conditions, and your parents are definitely a huge part of that.
So true. Yeah, I agree.
Just to jump in quickly, I'd also say that like the more participation I was involved in and the more project I was involved in, I kind of managed to see the world like for myself a bit more. Like I got more of a grasp and more of an understanding, which kind of, I think, it did the same thing. It kind of lent both ways. Like I started seeing things from my parents' perspective a bit, but also from another one. And I think so many of the people I've met have influenced my opinion at a greater level than my parents have too.
That's interesting, Plomena.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the decisions you are making. If you guys you're involved in decisions that affect other young people, right? And where do you get your opinion from? So is it just your opinion, or do you talk to other guys and then vote for what's best in your opinion, or where do you get that feeling what you have to vote for?
To be honest, I'll always just go with my gut, and usually it pays off. Say that. But no, I do also like to talk to other friends, and like secretly I'm taking down notes in my head about how they feel about certain things, whether I notice they're struggling themselves with mental health. Like I've noticed it, and obviously doing youth work, I can then help other people to get through these sorts of things and advise them on where to go for further help. But it's a tough thing, and I like to go with how I feel about myself. I have very strong views as well, so yeah, that's just me, to be honest.
Like what, Alfie? What would be a strong view?
I don't know. It's a bit of a tough one, to be honest. I can't really think of one off the top of my head.
Well, when it comes to mental health, I mean, you've all mentioned that several times. What's your take on it, or your view on it, for instance?
It's a very tough thing for people to go through, and I think it's becoming more and more prevalent in today's day and age. Young people suffer with it more and more, and I want to try and help people overcome this big issue. I've struggled with it myself. All my family, my siblings have struggled with it at some point in their lives. And a lot of people keep it to themselves, and they obviously won't talk about it because they don't want to draw attention to themselves, or do those sorts of things, and they don't want to sort of look like they're gasping for attention. But I see it as a cry for help, and I feel that's a really important thing to not get mixed up. So I like to be involved with my youth participation to make sure that those people have the help or the opportunities to receive that treatment if they need it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What about the others? Do you have like a trick where you get your opinion from, or is it like Alfie? It's like you're from your gut.
I'd just say maybe not so much from my gut, but I guess sometimes like in the spur of the moment, it feels like a gut feeling rather than anything else. I think it's quite strongly influenced from discussions you'd have with peers and like the people, your surroundings anyway. I feel often the decisions we're made and the topics that we're discussing are quite relevant to what we'd be talking about in day-to-day life with people that we're friends with and people in our immediate surroundings anyway. So I find that often when I'm in the situation of making a decision, those thoughts do flick through me. Like I think, oh, this person said this and that is helpful, or the discussion. I do like a healthy debate. So like the discussions I've had with other people do sometimes influence me. And I think I play it with like a middle ground. Sometimes I go with my gut feeling depending on the decision and how strong my values are on that particular decision. And other times I'd choose more of a representative and delegative approach instead.
I'd just like to jump in. We don't guess when we have to make a big important decision. There's no such thing as a guess. As soon as it comes to that moment of yes or no, black and white, are we going to do this, are we not? Immediately you know in your heart where your priorities lie and how you can help the most people possible. So that gut instinct, well, not really a gut instinct, but you feel it when you try to make a decision, and it just sort of comes out, and that takes you.
And I suppose it's discussed before, right? So I mean, you have like if it's important decision, you're discussing it over and over again, and then it comes to that decision. Yeah. Are you all involved in also in like staff recruitment? I don't know, like in job interviews or something like that? Because Ariane told me that and some of you are in your areas also are participated in like job interviews and stuff.
Yeah. So I think my YAB have been doing work around hiring mental health workers as well as nurses to go into schools for sexual health, and just little bits and bobs, like wherever we can sort of hire someone to make this a particular topic a bit better or a bit easier to understand for young people, we will do so.
And Plomena has been involved in social work interviews over the last couple of weeks. Do you want to say a little bit about those interviews that you've done?
Yeah, we I think it was 2 days worth of interviews trying to find it was for an apprenticeship with the social services, both young for children and for adults. And we were I was helping out by doing some role play exercises with them and just kind of giving my opinion on how I believe that the candidates were doing and whether they'd be the right fit to participate in that kind of job. And just like my immediate thoughts on how I believe the call went and how things go down and whether they're like the right candidate for this. We work closely with people who are quite professional and like already have quite a bit of experience in doing this. And they were just kind of interested in knowing whether us as young people would be comfortable and whether we believe that we'd get the help that we need if we were to speak to the particular candidates. I think it was quite insightful also to see that our opinions did often actually overlap with that of the adults. Like it was obvious when somebody was doing really well, and everyone pretty much did really well. And also it was like quite obvious to see which bits we thought they could improve on and whether they were the right fit for the job or not.
Mm-hmm. And as I told you, Ariane and I are going to talk to some German youth workers that are trying to get more children, more young people involved in their businesses, what would you suggest would be a good start? What would your advices would be for like those youth workers?
That's an interesting question. Off the top of my head, I think the first thing is an incentive, but not in the sense of like a reward or anything like that. Rather, what are they going to be getting out of it? So let's say if you're going to be going to participate in a workshop to do with climate change or something like that, what would the young person receive from that? Are they going to improve their ability to speak and their oratory skills? Are they going to be able to learn something new about climate change? And I feel like looking at it from that perspective, especially if like the young person isn't very involved previously in different initiatives and different jobs, it could be quite a nice thing for them to see.
Mm-hmm.
And also just telling them, or maybe quantifying what change they're going to be making. Because I know sometimes it often comes to the phrase of, oh, you're going to be making such great change. But what do you mean by great change? If you give kind of a number, you're going to be impacting 200 people, or you're going to be doing this and this. It just puts it in such a better perspective. And it just makes it so much more, like, it just makes it so much easier to be passionate about it and to really put your heart into the job that you're doing.
A really interesting point, Mina. Any other thoughts? Because that's what the colleagues at this conference will ask. So how do we get the young people involved?
Pizza parties.
I've taken this. I've made a note of that. I've forgotten about that.
April, yeah, you wanted to come in?
Well, I think one thing is communication. And I think really still the best place to go for lots of young people are schools. That's where you find lots of young people. So via school is how you can connect lots of young people. Obviously, not every single young person is going to want to get involved, but young people who do want to get involved will be able to find out about stuff via schools, because so many people feel disempowered because they don't know where to start. Young people, they don't know where to start. They think, I want to make this change, but how? And if you make it really accessible for them, that's a start and they can go on from there.
I'd like to say that before commissioning a project, weighing up a cost-benefit analysis, similar to what Plomena said, as to how it benefits the young person. I know certainly that before I started doing the AB, I didn't know how it would benefit me. But I was told that it can always go towards university, so I can use these skills they can apply later in life, and it would impress a lot of people. Personally, in myself, I've developed a lot, coming from that shy person and turning into this person that can sit here and do a podcast with you guys, or do a radio interview. It's all about how you're going to change this young person for the better, and you've got to really inspire them and find a way to touch their heart so that they become passionate about helping other people rather than just themselves. And that's how you make a change. You make a change through a community, not just one person. Mm-hmm. So you've got to find a way to sort of spread it like a disease, like a COVID-19.
Gross.
But yeah, so you've got to find a way to spread it across people, and sort of just so. I was obviously influenced by other young people to join my YAB. It wasn't by an older person. I was encouraged by a friend. Sorry, Ariane.
No, sorry, Alfie, because that was exactly what I wanted to say. Surely it also happens by, a bit like a domino effect by other. So in my patch, when I was in youth work, it was like, it was never a problem to get young people because they were talking to each other. And we always had enough young people queuing up and saying, can I get involved? Because like you, Alfie said, like your friend said, this is amazing. Why don't you get involved? That's how it happened.
And see, that was so when I moved up the year group, and my friend had left and moved on to whatever they were doing afterwards. I then took over assemblies at my school, and I would do talks, and then they'd be like, wow, I knew you back in high school. You'd never be able to do this now. What's your secret? And then I'd show them this. And I got a few of my own friends involved into it as well, and they've really settled in. They've enjoyed it. we do group work with other Yabs as well, and they've met more friends doing so. So yeah, you've just got to sort of encourage people and show them. You don't tell them. You've got to show them how they can make a difference in the world.
Amazing.
And I think my top tip to your colleagues in Germany would be make sure that when you are beginning to involve young people in decision making, that you're actually involving them in real decisions, and you are handing over real power to young people. In the early days when we started doing this work, a lot of the time it would be almost like we've already taken a decision on something as adults, and what we were looking for was an endorsement from young people rather than involving young people in taking the decision. So my top tip to German youth workers and others looking to involve young people in decision making, make sure it's a real decision, and that the young people have a real opportunity to influence that decision, because these guys will spot straight away when we're messing and we've already taken the decision.
I think we're almost at the end, but I have one question. Asking everyone that I'm doing the podcast with, and this would be, what are you learning at the moment? What you're not good at before?
Public speaking, definitely. Having that inner confidence to stand up in front of a group of people and say how you're feeling, speak about a current real world situation, and have people actually listen to you is really empowering. And knowing that I never would do that before sort of makes me think how different my life would be today if I hadn't have joined this group. So yeah, public speaking, definitely.
I'd say for me it was probably proper reasoning, if that makes any sense. I think putting myself in an environment where I often had to discuss with other young people and discuss with loads of different people in general, and to make decisions, being able to back whatever my opinion is with statistics or with anything else, not even real facts, but just like the reasons why it should be that way, has dramatically improved since I've placed myself in that environment. And it's such a good life skill to take forward, both in participation and getting involved in decisions, because it makes what you're saying seem so much more reliable and trustworthy to the person that you're saying it to, which I believe does have a greater impact on them. Because if I say that I like pizza, for example, but I don't give an opinion why, the person on the other side might not necessarily reciprocate the feeling, or might not necessarily understand where I'm coming from. But if I say I like pizza because it makes me feel happy, I think you're putting yourself on a mutual ground with the other person, and then it's really so much easier to come to a consensus with them.
And April?
Well, I think over the last year, I would describe my activism more as like sporadic, because I'm very passionate about a cause, but I'm focusing on too many at once. But I think as I realise I've got so many commitments in like college and youth voice, I'm learning more about prioritisation and organisation, so I can actually be committed to something and get things done and see it the whole way through. That's what I've learned. I've learned more of the hard way, but that's really what I'm focusing on, and that's what I'm trying to do more now.
Oh, you guys, I'm so impressed what you said. This is so sophisticated. You know what I said when Daniel asked me what I'm doing new? I'm exploring my virtual reality headset.
You know what though? This is what you.
Honestly, that is so embarrassing. All I do is speak in favor. Honestly, sorry.
This is just a small example of what youth participation can do to a group of young people. And so, if you were to apply that to Germany, you got even more of them. we can make a whole world of people that just know how to express themselves and make a change.
Yeah, I think you should run workshops for the German colleagues. That's what I'm going to suggest in the conference, that we get you in to run a workshop, you know.
But in real life, not on Zoom, but actually go.
Well, yeah, it's more difficult to finance without Erasmus now.
That's true. I'm sure there's ways.
But what are you doing new then?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm retiring. That's what I'm doing new.
Here comes another shallow response.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Hui, das war spannend. Ich hoffe, ihr seid alle mitgekommen mit dem Englischen. Das ist ja an der einen oder anderen Stelle nicht ganz einfach, wobei ich finde, dass die Jugendlichen uns das leicht gemacht haben, dem Englischen zu folgen und nicht zu sehr britisches Englisch gesprochen haben. Ich habe ja versprochen, dass wir das Ganze nochmal auswerten oder zumindest ein bisschen nachbesprechen und habe mir dazu Unterstützung geholt, nämlich meine Kollegin Erika Georg-Monney aus dem Amt für Jugendarbeit. Hallo Erika.
Hallo.
Ja, Erika, jetzt haben wir das gehört. Was hat dich da am meisten gepackt dabei? Was ist dir jetzt so direkt noch hängen geblieben?
Also gleich vom Ende her sozusagen gedacht, mich hat schon sehr beeindruckt, wie klar die Jugendlichen beschreiben konnten und können, was ihnen ganz persönlich das Beteiligtwerden bringt, wie sie klar beschreiben können, was sich für sie verändert hat und was es im Grunde ihnen auch für einen Spaß macht, an großen Entscheidungen beteiligt zu sein, die letztendlich dazu geführt haben, dass sie angefangen haben, politisch zu denken, dass sie überhaupt angefangen haben, vor großen Gruppen zu sprechen. Also hat ja einer dann deutlich gesagt. Sozusagen dieses Gefühl, ich habe meine eigene Stimme, I have my own voice, kam, glaube ich, mehrfach, dass es sie im Grunde in ihrer ganzen Persönlichkeit nach vorne gebracht hat und sie auch dieses langsame Herangeführt werden an große Entscheidungen, sie mittlerweile auch in keinster Weise mehr einschüchtert, über Budgets von, was war das, 45.000 Pfund mitzuentscheiden. Ja. Also, da habe ich große Ohren gekriegt und ich glaube, da gibt es viel, wo wir auch in unseren Strukturen nochmal gut nachdenken müssten.
Ja, das fand ich auch spannend. Das war ja auch bei den Tipps, kam das raus, als es hieß, sagt das den Jugendlichen. Ihr müsst denen auch aufzeigen, was es ihnen bringt, wenn sie sich partizipativ engagieren. Mir fällt da immer das Beispiel ein, dass wir den Jugendlichen bei der Juleika-Schulung immer sagen, ja, das ist gut für den Lebenslauf, wenn du die auch machst. Aber dass man eben tatsächlich dieses Engagement auch dabei immer mal rauskehrt, was das einem auch für die eigene Entwicklung bringen kann. Das fand ich ganz spannend.
Genau. Also ich gucke gerade ganz aktuell auf eine Bachelorarbeit, wo ich die Ehre hatte, die ein bisschen mitzubetreuen. Da sind in der offenen Jugendeinrichtung hier in Düsseldorf 15- bis 17-Jährige gefragt worden, wie sie das Mitarbeiten in dem Falle hieß es, glaube ich, Jugendrat der Einrichtung sehen. Und da kam auch diese ganze Palette von, ich habe immer gedacht, ich bin schüchtern und jetzt weiß ich bin's nicht. Ich kann es. Und mehrfach habe ich in den Interviews gelesen, eigentlich habe ich das noch nie erfahren, dass mir jemand wirklich was zugetraut hat. Weil in der Schule habe ich immer schlechte Noten und zu Hause kriege ich Druck. Und hier habe ich plötzlich Leute gehabt, die mir ständig gesagt haben, super, du kannst das und du mach mal. Und dann habe ich angefangen, mich zu trauen. Und in dem Falle war es auch mehr als die Entscheidung, welche Band am Wochenende spielt. Also wirklich konzeptionelle Entscheidungen. Also,
ja, das war ja dann auch noch so ein...
Wir haben auch Beispiele, obwohl mich England immer noch beeindruckt, wie weit sie gegangen sind. Ne?
Genau, das war ja dann auch noch so ein Punkt, den Robin eingebracht hat, ne? Dass er sagte, wenn Jugendliche involviert werden in Entscheidungen, dann stellt doch sicher, dass das auch richtige Entscheidungen sind und es eben nicht nur darum geht, ob es abends im Jugendtreff Spaghetti oder Pizza gibt.
Genau, also vielleicht kennt der eine oder andere noch den Bundesjugendring-Slogan Mitwirkung mit Wirkung. Also das ist es, glaube ich, dass jedem einzelnen Kind und Jugendlichen deutlich wird, das, wo ich mir jetzt den Kopf drüber zerbrochen habe und diskutiert habe über Tage, Wochen und Monate hinweg, das hat am Ende auch eine Wirkung und nicht nur eine Scheinwirkung im Blick auf Danke, dass ihr uns eure Meinung gesagt habt. Aber noch können wir nichts verändern, sondern dass es erkennbar wird, was sich verändert oder wie der Weg aussieht zu Veränderung. Also da so ehrlich müssen wir wirklich mit den Jugendlichen sein. Und die Frage der Wirkung und dessen, ja im Grunde auch der Rahmen, in dem sich Partizipation bewegt und Entscheidungen auch ernst genommen werden, das sehr ehrlich zu beschreiben. Also beteiligen um der Beteiligung willen bitte nicht, sondern wenn mit Wirkung.
Ja, und ich glaube, also ich erlebe das häufig so, dass wir in Gremien dann darüber diskutieren, wo müssen wir jetzt Jugendliche mit einbeziehen. Und ich glaube, dass es auch vielleicht viel mehr darum geht, auch Jugendliche zu fragen, wo willst du einbezogen werden? Ich fand das super interessant, dass junge Menschen bei Stellen, also bei das bin ich noch im Englischen drin, bei Jobinterviews, also bei Bewerbungsgesprächen quasi mit hinzugezogen werden und auch da sich ja wirklich auch der Tragweite bewusst sind und dementsprechend ja auch vernünftige Entscheidungen fällen können.
Genau, ich habe aus dem Interview wirklich gelernt, das war dann, glaube ich, auch der Robin, der gesagt hat, ihr müsst keine Sorge haben, dass Jugendliche dann nur darauf achten, welcher künftige Youth Worker, Jugendarbeit der lustigste ist oder der coolste, sondern wirklich qualitativ gute Fragen stellen und auf Qualität und Ausbildung achten. Also das hat mich auch wirklich sehr beeindruckt. Und Jugendliche selber fragen, wo wollt ihr beteiligt werden? Das sehe ich auch noch durchaus als ein Lernfeld, weil wir sind es so sehr gewöhnt, sozusagen, dass die Jugendlichen, also auch im Umgang mit Ehrenamtlichen, zu sagen, das und das und das und das und das sind die Fragen, vor denen ich stehe. Wie steht ihr dann dazu? Aber die Frage hinter der Frage, die fällt uns oft nicht ein. Das halte ich durchaus auch für ein Lernfeld für mich, für beruflich Mitarbeitende. Wo hättet ihr auch Spaß dran, mitzumachen?
Ja. Absolut. Und dann geht es ja wahrscheinlich auch einfach darum zu gucken, vielleicht Partizipation auch von unten nach oben zu führen. Also tatsächlich erstmal Jugendlichen das Gefühl zu geben, dass sie bei kleinen Entscheidungen immer mehr mitentscheiden können, beziehungsweise eher wahrscheinlich auf lokaler Ebene mehr mitentscheiden können, um sie dann auch eben an die größeren Strukturen ranzuführen.
Genau, also das habe ich dem Interview von Ariane auch entnommen. Also je mehr Kinder und Jugendliche daran gewöhnt sind, Entscheidungen mitzutragen und es zu einer Selbstverständlichkeit wird, zu desto mehr Verantwortung sind sie auch bereit. Also nicht nur, dass sie Verantwortung herangetragen kriegen, sondern eben auch selber eine Bereitschaft zeigen. Und ich habe das ist irre lange her, da habe ich mal in einem Fachartikel ein Bild gelesen, dass Partizipation eigentlich mit einem Ökosystem zu vergleichen ist, was mit einer Bakterie anfängt und dann kommen irgendwann die Flechten und die Pflanzen und irgendwann sind es die dicken, festen Bäume, die bis in den Himmel ragen. Dieses Bild sehe ich immer vor mir, wenn ich auch versuche, deutlich zu machen, dass Partizipation umso mehr wirkt, je näher die Entscheidungen an der konkreten Lebenswirklichkeit von Jugendlichen dran sind, ne, um Partizipation zu lernen, um dann im Grunde in dem, was wir ja normalerweise auch Demokratie lernen oder politische Bildung nennen, ein Gefühl dafür zu kriegen, ich schaffe auch noch mehr Verantwortung und da habe ich auch Lust drauf.
Ja. Jetzt waren das ja alles Jugendliche, die im Prinzip in kommunalen Strukturen in England unterwegs sind. Die sind ja nicht in der evangelischen Jugend in England unterwegs gewesen, sondern eben in diesen Youth Advisory Boards beziehungsweise auch im Jugendparlament, im nationalen. Was denkst du, kann man davon übertragen auf unsere Strukturen, auf uns in der evangelischen Kirche, in der evangelischen Jugend?
Ja, also haben wir ja schon behauptet, dass wir eine Menge lernen können. Es ist ja nicht so, dass wir diese Struktur von Jugendparlamenten und nicht auch hätten. Also ich habe extra nochmal nachgeguckt. Wir haben über 500 Kinder- und Jugendparlamente hier in Deutschland, meistens auf kommunaler Ebene und auch auf Länderebene. Und in unseren Jugendverbandsstrukturen haben wir sicher eine Menge dessen, was so am Anfang des Ökosystems, um im Bild von eben zu bleiben, längst schon gelebt wird. Also der Jugendrat im Jugendhaus, ne, das Freizeitparlament, der Palaverplatz auf dem Bauspielplatz, fällt mir da jetzt gerade nochmal ein. Und irgendwann kommt der Punkt, wo wir sozusagen mit der Interessensvertretung ansetzen. Also wo wir als beruflich Mitarbeitende, als erwachsene Ehrenamtliche uns an dem Punkt sehen, Interessensvertretung wahrzunehmen und der Politik gegenüber die Stimme von Kindern und Jugendlichen, im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes zu vertreten. Und an dem Punkt, also im Grunde zu versuchen, mit guten, ich nenne es jetzt wirklich Standards oder mit guten Qualitätsmerkmalen Jugendliche tatsächlich weiterzubringen, als wir es jetzt im Moment überhaupt nur denken können. Da können wir, glaube ich, noch eine Menge von lernen. Und das hat durchaus was mit sowas wie Qualitätsentwicklung, mit Standards, mit Haltungsfragen von uns selber zu tun, ne? Mit Fragen von, wo sind die Stellen, wo wir bereit sind, Macht abzugeben. Aber auch, wo sind Strukturen, wo wir aus jetziger Sicht sagen, nee. Also das sind Strukturen, die können wir Kindern und Jugendlichen nach wie vor nicht zumuten und da ist weiterhin Interessensvertretung das Mittel der Wahl. Aber da wirklich den Diskussionsprozess weiterzuführen und viel mehr mit dem, was wir anstoßen in der Beteiligung von Kindern und Jugendlichen in unsere Jugendverbandsstrukturen auch reinzukommen. Da sehe ich eine Menge Arbeit, aber das macht auch ungeheuer viel Spaß und ich sehe eine Menge Kinder und Jugendliche, die sicher bereit wären, mitzuziehen.
Ja, vielleicht lässt sich an der Stelle auch ganz gut von eben größeren Jugendbegegnungen, wie es jetzt zum Beispiel Fridays for Future ja sind, auch ein bisschen lernen, die ja relativ schnell gesagt haben, wir lassen uns hier nicht mehr vertreten, sondern jetzt ganz stark selber eben auf Augenhöhe diskutieren und fordern und auch zeigen, dass das ja funktioniert. Das sind ja keine schlechten Beiträge. Das ist ja nicht so, als könnten die jungen Menschen, die dort vertreten sind, nicht weit blicken und nicht strukturell denken, sondern das sind ja hochqualifizierte Beiträge, die dann in der Regel kommen. Und ich glaube, da, wie du sagst, ne, ich glaube, da kann man gut lernen und nochmal gut ansetzen.
Und du nennst jetzt ein Beispiel, ne, wo wir ja an einem Punkt sind, was wir in der Jugendverbandsarbeit ganz oben auf der Fahne stehen haben, nämlich Selbstorganisation. Also dass Kinder und Jugendliche auch ihre Wege finden oder dann vielleicht von uns die Wege geebnet bekommen, sich selber zu organisieren. Und das war auch in einer der Aussagen von einem der Mädchen in dem Interview mit der englischen Jugendgruppe, die ja sagte, was ich jetzt gerade mache, ne, ich gehe auf Klimademonstrationen und versuche da meine Stimme einzubringen. Und sie stellte das ja in einen Zusammenhang mit dem, was sie im Jugendparlament oder in dem Falle dem Youth Advisory Board an Selbstbewusstsein gelernt hat. Und da fahre ich eben selber nach London und nehme teil. Auch dahin zu kommen und zu überlegen, wie wir das als Jugendverband, wie soll ich das beschreiben? Also wie wir da schlicht Wege ebnen können. Also ohne Jugendliche weiterhin oder denken zu müssen, man muss sie ans Händchen nehmen. Nein, Wege ebnen.
Ja, es bleibt einiges zu tun. Erika, vielen Dank, dass wir die kurze Einschätzung zusammen machen konnten. Und euch hoffe ich, dass es gefallen hat. Und wir hören uns nächste Woche bei einer neuen Folge von Kalter Kaffee und trockene Kekse. Ciao. Kalter Kaffee und trockene Kekse ist der Partizipationspodcast aus dem Amt für Jugendarbeit der Evangelischen Kirche im Rheinland. Wir hoffen sehr, dass euch die Folge gefallen hat und würden uns noch mehr über ein Feedback, eine Nachricht bei Instagram, einen Daumen hoch bei Apple oder bei Google Podcasts freuen. Lasst uns erfahren, was denkt ihr zu den Folgen, was sind eure Gedanken zum Thema Partizipation?